Chad Kuhl pitched tonight, 1 run allowed. He had an ERA of 3.26 coming into this. Joe Musgrove may win the Cy Young, 1.90 ERA. Jamison Tyone, 2.95. Garrett Cole, 2.89. And then Clay freaking Holmes, 21 innings, no runs. What happens to Pirate pitchers when they leave here?
Seems pretty obvious in those cases. They get better. Holmes had started to look a little bit better here. Musgrove always flashed the potential. I mean, Cole had some very good seasons here, and we know that the sticky stuff helped him become godlike for a while there. Tyone looks like he's finally healthy. In the case of Chad Kuhl, that's a head-scratcher for me. He's finally put a little more consistency together. You know, coming up with why they get better is almost, it really is irrelevant unless you're the Pirates and you've got to figure out what you're doing wrong. The point is that a team that always has to be ahead of the curve when it comes to developing the talent that it is able to secure seems to do the exact opposite way too often. It just feels like we have seen more and more of these stories of guys who either, if they had success here, have more of it elsewhere after they leave, or flat out go from couldn't figure it out in Pittsburgh to figure it out all at once somewhere else. That is a very bad sign for a franchise that needs to operate perpetually on the cutting edge.
Exactly. I didn't even mention in that grouping Tyler Glassline was out with an injury, but before that, he was lights out. Let's go out to Rick in Cranberry joining us first tonight. What's up, Rick? How are you?
Hi, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
This is probably more an appropriate call for Sunday night when the Pittsburgh Pirates, not the Pittsburgh Maulers, lost by 2 touchdowns, which is not easy to do in baseball. I want your comments on what Ben Cherington had to say publicly, and I'm going to read his exact words very quickly and then listen to your response. I'm really encouraged by the way we're making decisions in terms of who's in the lineup when the pitcher's in the game. And I'm going to cut to the chase. That is something, you're really good at that stuff, and you have lots of good players. Gentlemen, please convince me that is
that's a head scratcher for me, Rick.
On the field.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, I have no idea. You know, that seemed like the wrong time to do it. It seems like you're offering up an opinion of, hey, you don't know really what we're doing behind the scenes here, but we're getting it done even though the record says otherwise.
An indication as to how angry I think most Pirates fans were when they either heard Cherington's comments or read them verbatim. Like Jason Mackey, I know, wrote about him. Pretty much everybody did that covers the team. Mm-hmm. He brought the quotes with him to read on the show tonight. Think of how mad you have to be to read someone's words verbatim, but I don't blame him one bit. I think there's way too much in baseball and in every other sport, but baseball especially. Front offices have been infiltrated by Ivy League types, Ivy League grads. In and of itself, that's not a bad thing, but I think it becomes a very, very, very bad look when your team has the worst run differential by a wide margin in the major leagues, an anemic offense, one of the worst pitching staffs in all of baseball, and you have the gall to sit up there on your show and say, oh, no, a lot of our processes are actually quite good right now. People do not, I don't care how much of it is actually true and how much underlying stuff beneath the numbers might look good to them or encouraging. What we are seeing on major league fields, on PNC Park or wherever they're playing every other game, it seems like, or every game, is horrible. Nobody wants to hear about how your process is improving rapidly, and don't worry, people, it's all under control.
It's a results-oriented game, and when the results aren't going there, the next thing that has to be shown are development, and we haven't seen much of that.
Don't talk like you're smarter than the people who are like the people who are paying ticket prices to watch a horrible baseball team that you are the general manager of. Don't act like there is, Bob, you said it. There's sort of a holier than thou, a little bit. We're smart. Yeah. Don't worry. We're smart, and we've got this under control. Well, it seems right now like you don't.
Mike Polite on Twitter says, don't forget Charlie Morton after leaving the Pirates, finding great success. He went to the Phillies. He struggled there, but eventually he did find it. Let's go out to Rich in Murraysville. Hey, Rich, what's up?
How you guys doing?
Good. What's up?
So just to stomp on the Pirates' grave a little, the same players, all the players you guys mentioned, Batista, Ramirez, go back. It doesn't matter, okay? When you have an organization that is low budget, you have to assume that the player personnel development is low budget, everything they do is low budget. Players don't want to play here. They want to get through it, and then they want to move on to free agency. Mark my words, Mitch Keller will be a top 5 pitcher somewhere else.
That's interesting because he has now been taken off of the rotation. He's into the bullpen. I don't know why. To me, Chris, if you're on a good team and you need a guy to get better and you put him in the bullpen, I get that. But here, he's a pitcher who has to be a starter, and he has to be a good one. To take him out of I just keep throwing him out there every single day. I've seen enough. I got to see him take it to the next level. And if he can't do it, I don't think a bullpen trip's going to help him.
I mean, if he goes to the bullpen and learns that he can suddenly dominate there, and then he gets thrown right back into a starting role and can't do it there, that probably breaks his confidence for good that he can ever be an effective starting pitcher. Starts making him think maybe he's just a bullpen guy. They wanted Chad Kuhl when he was still here to be a starter because he could throw it hard, but he ended up being a bullpen guy here until he goes somewhere else. I always thought of him, I should say, as more of a bullpen guy here. Then he goes somewhere else, becomes an effective starter. I don't know, There's a lot of truth in my mind when I think about trying to get into the headspace of a pro athlete, Bob, to what Rich just said there about just when you see everybody else around you struggling, even if you are a pro whose job it is to put that out of mind and do your best job, I do think it is tough when you are watching everyone else scuffle to rise above it. We've seen it with the Pirates. McCutchen and those guys turned this thing around. A.J. Burnett came here, and it was a totally different vibe. But it hasn't been like that in a pretty long time.
Bill in Pittsburgh wants to talk Steeler OTAs, which, by the way, begin tomorrow, and there are some intriguing stories. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, guys. Hey, Peter King said that the Steelers should sit down Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett and let them know that this job's wide open. And I think that's going to be a good thing for both of them. And I do think that Kenny Pickett's going to come on top, and he's going to win the job. What do you think?
I think it's going to be Trubisky, but I think it'll be a good competition. But beyond we talked a lot about that. What about Tuitt and what about Deontay Johnson, Chris? Because I think those are the two, 1A, 1B stories that you're talking about at OTAs. These are not mandatory, but if they both don't show up, what do you make of that?
Well, way less of a problem if Deontay Johnson doesn't show up. If I were in his shoes, that's like the last little bit of leverage or that last card I have to play to express my basic unhappiness. I wouldn't show up if I were him. And he apparently did not make people happy by not showing up to a football camp bearing his name.
And they paid a lot of money for that football camp, by the way.
Yeah, not a great. I don't mean to chuckle. Not a great look. I think it would be pretty easy to fly up, do the camp, and fly back, even if you don't have any intention of going to OTAs. As far as Tuitt, I don't know, Bob. You do the same thing I do. I sort of check people's tone because nobody knows the real story there and what's happening. So you try to get a sense of tone from what you read or what you hear. It seemed more optimistic a couple weeks ago. Now it seems far less so. Didn't Mike Tomlin smirk almost when he was mentioning Tuitt or answering a question about Tuitt? I'm saying this, but I'm much more optimistic than these words would indicate. Well, now that doesn't seem to be the case, and if he doesn't show up, it's another kind of little notch in the column of maybe this guy just doesn't have his head to where he needs it to get to play football again.
Well, I hope he does, because they need him and they need a healthy Alualu, and I think that could be a pretty good run-stopping defensive line. We got to take a break. We got a lot more calls. We'll try to rattle them off next right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.